from Central Kentucky's WCYN studios. You're listening to Quarantainment, a live entertainer's response to COVID-19. Each week, we interview industry professionals from around the world and gain insights into how they're coping with the adverse effects of the coronavirus and creatively adapting to the new normal. Without any further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome to the proverbial stage award-winning illusionist, escape artist, actor, your host, and creator of the Quarantainment podcast. This is Reed Masterson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Quarantainment, the socially distant podcast. My name is Reed Masterson, and this is episode 3. If this is your first time with us, you can watch live via Facebook or listen live via Central Kentucky's WCYN 101.3 FM. You can listen to all the replays for all of our previous podcasts on almost every major podcast network, as well as watch the replay of the video on YouTube by searching at Masterson's Magic. On this week's episode, I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing actor, producer, director, father of the year, the one I like to refer to as the bearded wonder, my friend, Mr. Adam Bryan.
How you doing, Reed?
Doing good, Adam. How are you, man?
Doing great. Good to be here.
So what's going on in West Virginia, in St. Albans?
A whole lot of new stuff, trying to figure out how to survive, man. We're getting ready to next week. We're going to start trying to bring some small groups of actors back, and we're going to start filming some theater and trying to get that out via video and sort of the virtual setting, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. Have they released any, I know like different places, it's different, Kentucky, West Virginia, doing waves of like opening things back up. Have they announced, I think I've seen on Facebook some like the coming back of St. Albans, but have they announced what the theater possibly looks like yet?
No. I haven't seen really anywhere that they've announced anything for crowds and stuff like a theater setting where we're packing them in back there, if you will. I haven't seen any opening for that. I don't know that we will get there this year, really, where even if we do, I don't know we'll get where an audience feels 100% comfortable coming back. So I think we've got to try to, we're trying to figure out how to get theater to those people still as well. Even if people come back and they're sitting here, we are possibly going to be living in a world where there are people that just don't feel comfortable coming to a theater, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to experience it if we can make it possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a crazy thing because that entertainment's been the one thing that has made it through everything, in history, every major plague, everything, world wars, everything, entertainment's been, in most cases, what people flock to in that instance of, tribulation and stuff. But now entertainment's, you're not allowed to flock to it. You're not allowed to, unless we provide it, virtually or digitally or whatever you want to call it. You don't have those options anymore, and it's kind of it's a weird time. It's because you just don't really know what to expect or how to react or how to plan for the future, because there is no the future is unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's definitely
I find it inspiring to see how many artists I think worldwide are figuring out how to adapt their art and make it more accessible. You and me both understand the thrill of a live audience, and there's nothing that there's no way we're ever going to be able to capture that in a video. Sorry film.
No,
you just can't. You don't got it. You don't got it. But I think that we're finding new ways to at least still keep creating art and getting it to the people that want to consume it. And it's been really inspiring to see all the new different music videos, and even like on national television where they're adapting to not being able to be in a studio together, you know, and they're teaching people, artists, musicians, to film things like we're doing in their living room. You know, and it's sort of cool to see that evolving, if you will, of artists.
Yeah, you have to what I think is a positive, I mean, on following that direction with all of this is, yeah, we don't know where this is going. We don't know what's going to happen in the end, but there's so much growth and adaptation happening so fast that otherwise wouldn't have happened. And there's going to be a lot of what I think, a lot of positivity that comes out of this, that's going to change the future, but it's going to change everything in different ways. So it's, you know, I don't know that virtual shows and stuff like that will hold up for the long run, at least not to the level it is currently, but it will. I think it's going to open up a new level of opportunities. It's, you know, people will be able to offer different things that they previously couldn't offer and didn't have even the thought process or idea or whatever to do that. So in terms of being creative and whatever, it's fantastic, but it's also, for some people, myself included, especially in the beginning of all this, it's crippling. So it's
Absolutely.
That creativity doesn't exist because it's just day in and day out losing, you know, for somebody like, you know, performers especially. I mean, you know, so you used to perform, you know, live and stuff like that, and we'll get into that in a second, but for people that do that now, it's you've lost everything, and it's really kind of crazy because you don't, I mean, what you have worked for your entire life is currently going virtual, but that's not what you've worked for your entire life.
Absolutely.
And that's not been the plan. And so all the excitement and love you had for performing is very hard through screen, you know, kind of like you said, feeding off an audience. It's like driving a car without gas, and, you know, unless you have a Tesla, which I'm not that rich. So it's my cars don't run without gas, and my shows hardly run without an audience. So it's interesting. It's fun. And it's
a fun ride.
It's a ride for sure.
I've always liked working where I work because it's not a normal theater. It wasn't built like a theater, et cetera. And everything you do isn't the way it's supposed to. You have to find a new way to make simple things work. Like building something level and straight and flat in this building is not an easy thing to do, you know, but we find interesting, creative ways to adapt and overcome. And that's really, I think, a lot of, especially theater arts, that's why I feel like the live aspect of it, you know, where we're all just holding on for dear life because something could go wrong at any moment in time. And then when it does, the enjoyment of figuring out how to fix that major catastrophe is what makes it, I think that's some of my favorite parts of live theater, you know, when things go wrong and then you collectively as a group of artists come together and make, you know, shine that turd as bright as you can, if you will. And you know, that's really one of the parts that I enjoy. And I'm starting to get that feeling right now as we've all been locked down for, you know, 2 months, and we're starting to come out a little bit here and there in a safe way. And it's like we're picking up the pieces right now, I feel like, as a collective, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty accurate description of it. That's for sure. It's so I wanted to kind of touch base, you know, like, obviously, other than people around where you're at, nobody, you know, my viewers, my fan base, or whatever you want to call it, have no clue who you are. I mean, you know,
nor should they probably.
So it's so I wanted to kind of do like a little backstory, you know, on you. And I know you've done a lot in your career. You know, I know you graduated with a bachelor's for the performing arts for theater, and you worked for, I think, Theater West Virginia, as a actor and stuff, and then you also traveled doing all their production shows, being you know, working behind the scenes and everything, and now you run a theater in St. Albans. You're not from St. Albans though, so yeah. So give us a little brief history on Adam.
A brief history. Well, like you said, I graduated from California University of Pennsylvania with a bachelor's degree in theater performance. And I immediately from there went and started working at a place called Tecumseh in Chillicothe, Ohio, which is an outdoor theater. I worked there for one summer, and then I started growing a beard there, which is very important. At Tecumseh, that's where it all started, my beard. And then I came and auditioned for Theater West Virginia that summer to work on their educational tour in the fall. This would have been 2005. And I got hired to play Devil Anse Hatfield, which I know from Kentucky, you know the story of the Hatfields and McCoys.
Oh, yeah.
You do end up on the wrong side of the river in that, but well, that's another story. But I got hired to play Devil Anse Hatfield because, in my honest opinion, I've always told the story this way, because I had a beard, and Devil Anse is known for his beard, and I came with one. They didn't have to glue one onto my face. It was there. It was already there. So I got hired to play Devil Anse Hatfield, and I played him for that entire tour. And then I worked there for 4 years in a variety of different roles, always an actor, but I also was a road manager on their educational tours. I did 4 tours with them, 3 acting, 1 puppet tour. I did a tour with puppets for an entire year. And then I started teaching classes there, teaching acting classes they have a professional training academy where they offer classes in the performing arts. Check them out if you're in the Beckley, West Virginia area. They're still doing those classes as far as I am aware. But I started teaching there, and then in 2009, the former mayor of St. Albans sent a message to Theater West Virginia that he was starting a theater and not starting a theater, but he procured a building and was trying to get a theater going. And he wanted somebody to come up and teach some classes. So they sent me. I have pretty good rapport with kids. I enjoy kids. That wasn't my intention in life to become an acting teacher, but it's sort of one of my most enjoyable things now that I do is lighting the acting thespian fire and youngsters in the area. But anyway, he sent me up here. They sent me up here to teach classes. I hit it off with the mayor. Next year, he hires me to run the theater, and here we are almost 11 years later, and we're doing all kinds of stuff. Business was booming until all this hit, and we're picking up the pieces right now and getting ready to light it up again in a different way.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's interesting. What it's, you know, obviously we've known each other since I think 2015. I'm pretty sure. I think it's 15. You know, obviously, like, you know, our history goes back to, you know, I contacted you and said, "Hey, Adam, can I do a magic show at your theater?" And yeah, here we are. So it's I know you don't have, or based off of my experience, you don't have a lot of outside productions that come into the theater.
Not a whole lot. We have had a few more in the last couple years since you were one of the first bigger ones that we brought in my opinion. That you always draw a good crowd, and the audience. You said to me a few times that more people from St. Albans ask when you're coming back
all the time. It's funny.
Have great fans here. They love you here in St. Albans.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've started trying to do more. It really the hard part is we're a small nonprofit community theater, and a lot of outside shows cost more money than we can afford. So figuring out creative ways to make things happen is sort of the name of the game for me. I've done that with you. I've also done that with I think one of the saddest things we had to cancel this year is Ed Asner was coming back to do a show. He did a show with us last year. One of the theater highlights of my life. I got to be on stage with Ed Asner for 2 nights to sold out crowds. It was amazing. But he was going to come back this year, actually next weekend. I think he was supposed to be here. we had to cancel that. I just rescheduled that. So providing we can have an audience, I'll announce that show right here on your podcast, Reed, that Ed Asner will be back on November 20th and 21st. Imagine that.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad he's healthy, obviously with everything going on, he's got a little bit of age on him. So that's, with a scary thing in these times, it's, we actually just lost a very big, Roy from Siegfried and Roy just passed away from coronavirus. So that's a huge, Tiger couldn't take him down, but coronavirus did. It's,
I said that. That was
it's sad. It's a crazy world. There's nobody's left out. It doesn't matter. So I wanted to. You run this theater. You and Marley are the two main people in the theater, and then you have a group of volunteers and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then you host the acting classes and all that. So we know a little bit about the whole acting side of Adam. What else? What else do you have going on? Hobbies, things that you did prior to this that maybe this has also affected.
As far as hobbies, the virus hasn't really affected my type hobbies, because most of my hobbies would be something outside. Taking a hike or kayak. We enjoy kayaking. What causes more hindrance to that is a child than a virus. It's tough to go kayaking with a kid that won't sit still for very long. But that's my new hobby is my son. So that I'm not complaining really about that whatsoever. He's way more fun than a kayak. But I can't wait to take him out on a kayak, which I think will happen maybe at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. We're gonna see how that goes. But
yeah, I can't imagine him not enjoying that. He's definitely a fun little dude for sure.
Yeah, he just made the paper this week, actually. On one of the sections above the fold, there's a big picture of my son playing in the mud with mud all over his face. And it was literally just a little puff piece. It said, like, Finley's having fun in the mud. That was all it was.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yep.
I remember back when we were there back in November, I think, maybe.
I think you are correct.
Something like that. That's when we got to officially meet the little dude. So,
yep,
he's fun. How's Marley and it is Marley, right?
Yep, Marley and my dogs. They're doing well. They're enjoying all the extra time that we're home to rub on them and love on them. Same with Yeti the bird.
Yeti, that's why I was trying to remember his name. Yeah.
He's definitely enjoying time home. He's
bet.
Out of his cage almost all the time nowadays. He's happy about it.
Gotcha. Okay. So, well, we've already talked about, you're working on some, this new virtual platform to try and provide, plays or skits or whatever you can come up with to do virtually in this new world. So that's kind of how you all are adapting currently, which seems in the live entertainment industry seems to be the way most people are going. So I haven't seen very many theaters really do it. I've seen some that are, I've seen some and they're all doing differently. Like some places are doing, actual, still like letting the performers come in and do a full show to like a house of employees and then they're broadcasting it virtually and people are paying for tickets. So there's kind of different things going on with all of that. But that's kind of the route you all are going right now to try and keep the Alban alive and make sure that people, don't forget about you, obviously while this is, which, nobody's going to forget about you, but you know what I'm saying? To stay relevant in the times and keep things going, kind of like we're doing with the podcast and with the virtual variety show and the different things that we're got going on. So is there anything, we're going to have a commercial break here in a few minutes. Is there anything you wanted to touch base on that before I go into like all my questions that I've researched? Ashton helped me with those too. So we're actually starting a segment in this episode, which we haven't done. We kind of started it last week, but it it wasn't planned. So we're gonna call it Ashton Asks. So Ashton's got some questions for you. So she's gonna do some questions for Adam. But is there anything you got going on, or that you wanted to touch base on that I may or may not possibly talk about, or any new updates or anything like that?
Any new updates? No, I think the only thing that I would, I guess, just mention is that we will be making theater happen somehow or another. The show, the age-old adage of the show must go on. Like I live and die by that. Literally, you always got to keep going. So the show must go on, and we're gonna figure it out. Even if it's St. Albans, West Virginia is where we figure it out, it's gonna happen some way or another. We're gonna follow suit, or we're gonna blaze the path ourselves, one way or the other.
Gotcha. No, that's the spirit. That's the spirit that everybody should have, and that's what I hope to get out of this podcast. And I've mentioned it on other episodes, but there's other entertainers, other people like yourself that this they're not going to come out of this. It's just not going to happen, man, and it's totally understandable because it's hard. But to see people pushing through and changing and adapting and doing it very fast is hopefully hope to give people, be like, well, if they can do this, I can go over here and do this. Like, absolutely. I might as well, so like I had no clue I was doing any of these things, 2-3 weeks ago. So it's been wild. And
that's why it's so important, I think, to work together and not see ourselves as separate artists. You do your art and I do my art, et cetera. We're all part of the artist collective, and yeah. The teamwork between different art, like the video people are helping the music people, are helping the magicians or the theater people. We got to learn from each other, and I think that's one of the things I've always loved about theater more than any of the other art forms, is that it's such a collaborative art form, and you've got to be able to work together. If you don't work well with others, you can't work in theater. It's very collective. It's all the show is only as strong as the weakest link, or the spotlight operator, or the light guy. Like, we're all integral. And I think that especially now more than ever, working together, you see the willingness to create together and work together, I think, more than maybe we would have if we weren't in such a dire situation.
Yeah, it's definitely brought people together on different levels that has been crazy. It's people perform. I mean, for instance, this weekend, we're doing or not this weekend. It is this weekend, but it'll be right. Be after this actually plays. But we're doing a 24-hour magic show. There's like 40 plus magicians that are going to be performing, and I've only ever met like 2 of them. And literally from all over the world, people from China to Japan to the Netherlands to, Kentucky to, so it's
amazing.
It's wild that all these people are coming together and doing all these things. And there's a lot of different things going on like that. And that excites me because there's a lot more collaboration and connection, especially in the magic community. In the magic community, there's a lot of hush hush and like, we don't work together as well as we should. In most cases, it's like, these are my secrets. We don't talk to each other, this and that, or like it's
a naturally selective, secretive art form, I would think.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So it seems like there's been a lot more collaboration, and we ourselves have talked to a lot more magicians and been a part of a lot more group conversations and stuff like that since this all went down. So that's super exciting for me, because I'm somebody that likes to talk and share, as you know. Like, I mean, we've talked a million times, and it makes me excited to be able to talk to other people that I have things in common with, because when you do what we do in particular, and this probably applies to you, but I can't have these conversations with people outside of my world. So like my family and stuff, and it makes it really hard. So it's people that understand what I'm doing make it a lot better. So it's really nice to see all that happening. So We're about to we hear some music coming in. That means we're about to take a commercial break. We're going to be live on WCYN 101.3 FM. We'll be right back. Hey guys, what's up? This is Reed Masterson, and I wanted to hop in here real quick during the commercial break here on WCYN's 101.3 FM and say thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. We really hope you enjoy this podcast. I know we are experiencing some technical difficulties today with the audio. Due to the multi-platform connection we have going on through the radio station and through Zoom all at the same time, but we have that figured out. So next time we won't have those issues. But if you head over to anchor.fm/Masterson's Magic, you will find Quarantainment, the podcast. You can re-listen to all of those podcasts, each one new podcast every week at 5 p.m. You can also listen on Spotify and a bunch of other major podcast networks. You can also support the podcast. So you can do like a little monthly donation, 99 cents. I think they do $4.99 a month and then $9.99 a month. Obviously, some of that money goes straight to Anchor.com, and then we get a small portion of that as well. So if you like the podcast and you want to keep seeing the podcast, head on over to Anchor and click the support button. Also, we try and do a feature for questions for any of our podcast guests every week. So if you head to Anchor, you click message, a little dialogue will pop up and allow you to create a message for that week's podcast. Obviously, I can't because, it's my own podcast. But, yeah. So if you're enjoying the podcast, guys, head on over to Anchor, favorite the podcast. Let us know you like it. Let us know what you like. Let us... if you have any ideas or any guest requests, put that in the comments down below. We truly appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing this, and hope you enjoy this week's guest, and hope you enjoy next week's guest, and the week after that, and the week after that. Once again, guys, thank you so much for listening to Quarantainment, the socially distant podcast.
And we're back to the Quarantainment podcast. Here's your host, Reed Masterson.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Quarantainment, the socially distant podcast. If you're just now tuning in, I am chatting with my good friend, Mr. Adam Bryan, director of the Alban Arts and Conference Center in St. Albans, West Virginia. Are you with me, Adam?
I'm here.
He is here, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Adam. So we've talked about theater, we talked about adapting, we talked about coronavirus. I mean, coronavirus is the new normal. I think it's the way it's affected the entire world is wild, to say the least. It's the world itself has the world as an economy as a whole has been through a lot of things. The Spanish flu, world wars, anything you can think of that's affected, multiple nations, multiple, different races, different things. But there's always been areas that it didn't affect other than maybe financially or whatever, but nothing's ever shut down the whole world. Like nothing's ever just turned off the lights and said, go home, hibernate for 2 months. And, maybe we'll wake you up eventually, and we're going to wake everybody up individually. So it may, we may wake you magicians up like 3 months later after we wake up, the grocery store workers or something. It's just weird. Like it's such a different world we're living in for sure. So it's I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy. So it's
I think anybody that says they do know is foolish.
Yeah, I agree. It's
I don't think anybody knows.
I know there's a lot of optimism, and I'm not a pessimist. I call myself like a realistic optimist. So it's I've tried to mentally prepare for our losses for a while now, because a lot of people have like, oh, like a couple weeks, whatever, even at one point in time, the president was like, this is a 14-day thing or something like that. It's all over. We'll be back to normal. Obviously that didn't happen, and it just, everything keeps changing. So it's, I'm pretty sure that, there's going to be, we see things opening up now, which is great for the economy and whatnot. But for the live entertainment industry in particular, I don't see us opening up this year, not in any fashion that is, even if they were to say, for instance, for you, like you run a theater. So like, let's say they're like, okay, well, yeah, Adam, you can open back up to 20% capacity. You can't pay the bills in 20% capacity.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like most of these theaters that'll have to fight that battle will just be like, well, what's the point in opening up if we can't have enough people to pay for the tickets, because we have things that we have to pay for, and that's how we pay for it. So it's that makes it very limited, because social distancing is not an easy option, and especially like for you, you're very in a non-negative way. I don't want to sound negative, but like you're in a very small theater, like 200 seats, something like that.
Yeah, so 225 more or less.
What is 30% capacity or 20% capacity of that? Like that would be nothing.
Yeah.
Like
50 people, 60 people.
Like that would, I can't imagine being like, well, 50 people were sold out.
That, I think the thing that's hard for what we do too, which it isn't maybe as hard for you, because for the most part in your show, it's you and Ashton, and probably depending on the size of the show, maybe a few tech people. But for us, we've got to consider the size of our cast too. Like if that factors into the overall number, and we can't have more than 50 people in the room, but we've got a cast of 40, we can only add 10 audience members if that's, how it works. So,
just
and we've got to keep them in the green room. So we got to squish actors in the green room if we have a large, so it's a whole lot of, there's a whole lot of uncertainty of how you can make that work in a safe way and following the guidelines that are set forth too, because, we all want to get back, but we also don't want to be the place where it all comes back from either,
Yeah, for sure. No, it's yeah, at the end of the day, like we strive on live audiences. So if you got to have people to have live audiences, and I'm not one that wants to, I wouldn't go out and do a show right now if you paid me to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't do it. Like, which is one side of me, like the little devil over here, is like, you're stupid, like, because like that's what you've been working on your entire life. What do you mean you're going to turn down a show if somebody pays you for it? And the other side of me, obviously is the intelligent side, but it hurts me to be like, I wouldn't even perform if I had the opportunity to do an actual live show, which is a scary thought, because I've been doing this full time for, well, I mean, I've been self-employed full time for 15 years. So it's, but only Magic full time for since 2014. So the year before we met you.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a scary thought. So it's,
people don't think about too, for especially like for what you do, not only do you need an audience to watch the show, but part of what is the allure, I know, for us of bringing someone like you to St. Albans is the interaction that the audience gets with you afterwards, like getting to shake your hand and get your autograph and get to meet you. That gives them a feeling of just the whole experience. It's not just watching the show. And I have a feeling for you, it wouldn't feel like doing a show if you didn't have that part of it. Like even if you said, I'm going to do a show and there's an audience, but I'm not coming out and talking to anybody afterwards, that would almost feel like wrong and against everything you stand for too, So you've got to be able to have all of it. You can't just have just a little bit of it. You got to have all of it to get the whole full experience.
Yeah, we couldn't. I mean, we couldn't bring people on the stage. You know,
Sure.
so like that.
I didn't think about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that like half of my show is actual audience participation. So it's that wouldn't exist. So you're like, okay, well, now you can do a live show, but 50% of your show can't be performed.
Yeah, I didn't even think
So it's like, which is where I'm at virtually, because a lot of our audience participation things and stuff like that in the show are things you can't do on a screen, because it's not like ask a question audience participation. It's physical touching, feeling, sitting, standing, whatever, you know, like, so it makes it really impossible to do that. It just doesn't work. So
yeah.
it's weird. I don't know. It's definitely a crazy time. So we've got these. I've got a few questions, and I wanted to, and I actually want to start off by doing a little Ashton asks. That's a hard thing to say. Ashton asks.
Set yourself up for the fail on that.
Yeah, that's yeah. Man, change that title next time.
I'm just gonna insert a tongue twister and make it interesting.
Yeah. Make the radio bleep that one out, you know, like it's so yeah, Ashton's got some questions for you. I have no clue what they are. I obviously, like, she records them and I play them, and then we get to listen to it. So here we go.
Hey Adam, I hope you are doing well. I cannot wait until we can perform once again in front of live audiences and come back to the Alban. We always have such an amazing time there. But until then, I have 2 questions for you. One, is there a production that you have yet to have at the Alban that you hope to put on in the future? And 2, if your career wasn't working in theater, what do you think you might be doing? I hope you have a wonderful rest of the night. Talk to you later.
Those are good questions, Ashton. Let's see. Is there a show that we haven't done at the Alban that I would like to, or that we're planning on doing? That's always such a tough question for me, because I'm not a big. I'm a theater guy through and through, but I'm not a big, like, I've read every play in the that exists out there. I'm not that guy. But I do know that we are actually scheduled this year to do Honk, which is, if you don't know Honk, it's Ugly Duckling the musical, more or less. It's a very cute story, and I'm hoping that we get a chance to do that one. But that one fits into the category that we were just talking about of it's going to be a cast of 30 to 40 people to make it work. Like, if we're going to do it, we got to do it right to make it work. So I don't know that we're going to be able to get that one done. We just have to sort of wait and see. We haven't pulled the plug on that one yet, but I hope to get to do that sometime, because that show is when I did the puppet tour with Theater West Virginia, it was loosely based on some of the things that happened in Honk, and I discovered the music for that show during that time, and it was just a fun memory to sort of go back. And then the other one is Wiley and the Hairy Man by Susan Zeter. I've always wanted to do that show. I want to be in that show. I have somebody I want to direct that show. Leah Turley, I want you to direct that show for me if you're listening. I'm calling out. I want to be the Hairy Man. I think that's a very fun show. It's about a little boy who lives in the swamps of Louisiana, and he has to go out in the woods and do things for his mom and help take care of the house, but there's a hairy man that lives out there that's gonna eat him, and he ate his father. And it's like the scary children's story that I always love, children's stories that are a little bit dark and they're not like cookie cutter princess stories. And it's one of those. It's definitely a kid's story, but it's got a little darkness, and it's a lot of fun. Wiley and the Hairy Man, check that one out.
Wiley and the Hairy Man. I like. Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that idea.
And then I guess, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing theater? I've thought about that one a lot, and I don't know, to be honest with you. It's one of those things that I just, like, that's always how I've seen myself for I don't want to say as long as I can remember, but for almost as long as I can remember. I've just always like that. This is what I was supposed to do in life, and that's what I'm gonna do. Because why not? Why fight what you're supposed to do?
I agree.
Just keep on doing it. But if I had, like, I guess to pick, I'm a very big hunter. I enjoy, which I know is the opposite of what Ashton wanted to hear. But I enjoy being outside, and I've always enjoyed hunting from the time I was little and went hunting with my dad. If I could figure out a way to become a professional hunter, which is still sort of theater in and of itself, because making videos and doing all those kinds of fun things, that would be probably my dream job if I could go do that, because I'd still be doing theater and I'd get to live outdoors all day. It'd be like the best of both worlds for me.
You like Bear Grylls?
Yeah, Bear Grylls. I would probably die on a Bear Grylls mission, because I'm definitely not anywhere as close to in shape as Bear Grylls is. But I would die trying, because that'd be a lot of fun. Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, Ashton and I love the outdoors as well, and one of our favorite. Hunting is not something I'm interested in at all.
Sure. We discussed. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm not against it, but it's not my cup of tea. You know what I'm saying? So it's but kayaking, which I know you love, is something that we love a lot. We whenever we get the opportunity, which hasn't been for I think 3 years now, but we travel up to Maine. Spend some time with my aunt and my uncle, and we kayak out to a private island, which
Cool.
is where it's literally just us in the wilderness in this
That's great.
island, picking wild blueberries. Sounds
Like heaven to
serene.
me.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing, and the
That's
water's clear. The water's
That's one of
so
the
clear.
reasons, not hunting, just outdoors in general, that I moved to West Virginia and fell in love with the place. Is like I found a way to do theater in a place that has some of the most beautiful outdoor landscapes that I've seen in the world. It's a beautiful place. And I can do theater there. That's just what you don't think of West Virginia. That's like the theater mecca of the world, right? But that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, it's so. One of the questions I have is, so as the director of the Alban, what is something that you would like in the future to see the Alban achieve? Maybe some type of upgrade, or you all are now offering this type of thing, or whatever it may be. But in the future, what would you like to achieve with the Alban in general?
I think some of our big things that I would like to achieve here in the near future, if you will, would be some building upgrades. It's an old building. It was built in 1938. We're on the historic registry, and a lot of that is great. The history of the theater is one of my favorite parts of working here too. People walk in off the street and tell me stories from when they were teenagers, and I love little old ladies telling me stories about they got their first kiss or they were necking in the back row. These little sweet little ladies, you expect to hear nothing like that come out of their mouth, and that's the story that they can't wait to tell me. I love that part of the job. But it's also an old building. It's not ADA suited. We can't. There are accessibility issues that we have here. There are all kinds of there's not really great handicap seating. There's accessibility is one of the things that upgrade wise, the restrooms and stuff, just so everybody can enjoy what we're doing here. And we've got a few other little building maintenance things, lighting and electrical and stuff that you have with a 1938 building that I'd just like to get that stuff upgraded. I think a lot of the programming we're doing is, I don't want to say is we've reached the pinnacle of what we can do by any means, but because that's not the truth. We can always be doing better. But as far as like what we offer, there's not much. We offer so much. There's not a whole lot left out there that we have the time or the staff to do. You know what I mean? So upgrading this building and or finding new space to have breakout too, because we could book more shows like you and Ashton if we had available dates where we weren't in rehearsal for a show we're producing or teaching a class for a class that we're teaching, or or whatever, or renting the space out for a concert or whatever it may be. There usually isn't a whole lot of empty space on the calendar. At the moment, that is clearly not the case, but normally I know in scheduling things with you, there's you've got a couple weekends and I've got a couple weekends for the year, and then we just hope and cross our fingers that one of them might cross, that we can get you there. But if we had extra space to have like our academy outside of this space and have the academy somewhere else, we could do more in this space as well. So those upgrading what we've got and finding some breakout space would be probably the two big things that I'd like to upgrade.
Yeah, I know we've had those similar conversations in the past. I think you mentioned one time you were looking at a building like across the street or something. You were possibly considering for that reason of taking your classes across the street and stuff. So yeah, I think it's I don't want to take up too much time out of this, but you said the building's built in 1938, and you know we travel around a lot. You know, we've been to 46 states, and we've been in a lot of old theaters. And your aesthetically, I don't think anybody would know that the Alban was built in except for the marquee. The marquee is the only thing that you're like, okay, well that type of marquee doesn't really exist anymore. Like they would have to have more money than they have to have that brand new in today's time. So like, other than that, it doesn't look, and I think that's because, you know, you've had so many different people in there over the years. It's a theater, it's a church, it's a this, it's a that, we've torn out this, we've put this in, everybody's done different things. So it doesn't. A lot
of the aesthetic that you see in here now, the seat color and the wallpaper on the walls, etc., was done in, I believe, the 80s or 90s. And it was at one point it was a church. So a lot of it, to me, still feels rather churchy. Having grown up, my father's a pastor. Having grown up in the church, I'm very familiar with that aesthetic, and there's definitely some of that here. So that would be part of, you know, in the upgrades of the building, getting it back to what it looked like. Inside, getting it back to what it looked like in the 30s or 40s would be really awesome to get it back to that too. Because I agree with you, the aesthetic doesn't match the date, but for sure,
no, not at all.
It's definitely an 80s 90s feel for sure.
Yeah.
No
it's
doubt.
Not bad or anything. It's just
no, absolutely
definitely not. You'd never walk in there and be like, oh, look at this 1940 building.
Right.
You know, like, no, not at all. Like it's this is a question I have, and I like people always ask me, like, what kind of advice would you give to up and comers, you know, new magicians or whatever? So like, what kind of, for anyone wanting to pursue a career in, whether, you know, acting, theater, any kind of live, you know, theater, anything like that, what kind of advice would you give them? And that'll be our last question.
I'm going to steal some advice from somebody else it's advice that changed how I look at my career, and it would be advice I would give to any other young person coming up thinking about it. And it is from Ben Vereen, came to my school when I was, I think, a senior in college. And Ben Vereen, if you don't know who he is, he's an amazing dancer. Was on Broadway, original cast of Pippin. Look him up. Ben Vereen's amazing. But anyway, he came to school and gave a talk, and somebody asked him a stupid question, in my opinion, at the time. He asked, what's Broadway like? Which, I'm a serious actor. That was such a silly question to me. But anyway, Ben Vereen didn't miss a step. And he said, you know what's better than Broadway? A job. I've worked for a lot of money. I've worked for pennies. I've worked all over the globe for kings, or, you know what, he elaborated. He said, what matters is I have a job, and I can do theater in New York. I can do theater in St. Albans, West Virginia, or Cynthiana, Kentucky. Doing what you love is what matters. Doing what you love. It changed my life. Changed my life.
I couldn't agree with that more. So, well, Adam, man, it's been a huge pleasure talking to you. Really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're cutting time short here, man. Good luck with everything, and we'll chat again in the future, obviously. And appreciate it, man. Have a good day.
You've been listening to Quarantainment, a socially distant podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, retweet, share, comment, and anything else you can do from at least 6 feet away. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay home, And above all else, stay creative. Join us next week. Same time, same place, same host, new interviews. For more info on the entire Quarantainment series of events, visit mastersonsmagic.com.